So you ended up in a small town in Missouri. What were your initial thoughts? Did you have any impressions before coming to the U.S. about what the U.S. would be like? And then did your reality line up with those thoughts, if you had them?
Yeah, no, I actually didn't have any preconceived notions or expectations, and it was just such a vast unknown. I don't know that I knew much about anything of the world, let alone the United States. Sure, there's television and those types of things, but I don't know as an 8 or 9 year old how much of that I knew or could have used to anticipate what would come. Um, I had no language, so I didn't have English, at the time, and so that didn't leave much room for initial impressions, since I didn't understand really a lot of what's going on, and certainly what was being said. But for a translation here or there, my mother offered me, and of course her language was next to nothing. And my stepfather, may he rest in peace, did the best he could. But it was a suburban environment in Israel. We lived in a little duplex. You said I moved to a small town, which is almost true. Moved to a little farm about 3 miles south of this little town. I think population was 573 or something like that. And Raj, in retrospect, because then I don't know, there was just so much to absorb or try to absorb and learn, notwithstanding the language, but also culturally and so on. But in retrospect, I think it was as much of a more urban or suburban environment with a completely different culture to a completely rural environment with its set of standards and mores and cultural aspects that were just foreign to me.
How long did it take you to, I guess, mesh with the local culture in school or elsewhere, having, not speaking English, number one, but then also having a foreign sounding name? I'm sure you were the only one in your town or close to your town named Nir Regev.
Right. So, there's the aspect of being foreign. There's the aspect of being Jewish, and I sometimes joke or say that my mother and I was half the Jewish population in probably 100, if not 150-mile radius. And let's not kid around. And I look differently. I look different from most there, or dare I say all. So all those factors played in, and I must say that the people there in Southern Missouri, in that area, were so accepting and so loving in a way, in their own way, a very different way from maybe what we would think of as loving and welcoming. But yeah, there was never. But I also believe that a lot of what we receive is about what we wear on our sleeve, or dare I say, don't wear on our sleeve. When we present ourselves in an open way and an accepting way, then I think that comes back to us. And that in retrospect, that was my experience there for sure. And I was, I was accepted for sure at a 20th high school reunion. Sherry said, "These people love you." I didn't realize, there was such affection, that y'all had for each other. And I said, "Yeah, and you're right, for each other, because I loved them too." Absolutely. And they became an integral part of my life, and certainly to this day, an integral part of my fabric. And I wouldn't give up that experience or those times for anything. As far as acclimation, I know that my first quarter, and I remember this somewhat distinctly, my first quarter, I remember receiving the report card, and it had all Fs. I'm not sure I understood what that meant. It's a pretty letter, but it did have all Fs, because I didn't understand anything, even instructions to do math. I knew math at that level, but even the instructions of how to go about that, I just didn't understand. But at my fourth quarter, the end of the year, I had all A's. So I didn't maintain a 4.0 average. Let's just get that out of the way. But be clear about that. But yeah, it was pretty rapid, and I attribute that to being young. I don't know that I was that bright or brilliant, but I think younger kids are resilient in that way, and I think I fit that mold.
My thoughts coming into this, before digging deeper into your story, just based on what I knew from our previous conversations, I thought you'd be someone that carried or had a chip on his shoulder based on the fact that you lost your father at a young age, you didn't know your grandparents, you came to this foreign country where no one looked or sounded like you. But it sounds like your experience was kind of the opposite. And did that play a role into just how warm and welcoming you appear to be today?
Well, I hope it's not a facade. Thank you. Probably, I don't know. I've certainly thought about that. I've considered that, Raj. And I've always viewed life or the history we create as a springboard versus a hammock. It's not a place, where we can, see that something bad had happened or an event impacted our lives and to the negative, and then lean on that or lay back on that, or woe is me about anything of that nature. So many elements of life can offer inspiration, and so often we learn by contrast, right? Contrast is a wonderful, poverty, a single mother, the cultural difference into which those deep waters into which I took a dive, not of my doing. So I didn't choose to do that, right? So there's that aspect. All of those I look back as positive. I mean, certain elements were tough at the time, really tough. But I'd rather have experienced all of it than to not experience even one of those elements that make up my fabric. Yeah. So, and warmth, why not?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're right. I mean, why should we not be warm and accepting and connective and collaborative? And yeah, I mean, I'm so mushy about that. It's just a way of being that I can't avoid, I suppose.